Good morning, children.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yesterday we had completed the chapter locomotion and movement, and the concluding part was about sliding filament theory. Hope you're remembering it. Quickly you summarize sliding filament theory, and after that we'll proceed to the next chapter. And the notes of the previous two chapters I have sent in the group. Hope you might have seen it. Okay. And as I told you, I'm giving the entire printed note. Entire means I'm not deleting the topics already removed by CBSE. Let it be like that. Now you know which are the topics to be learned. I have already sent the deleted portions PDF also earlier in the group, and you can check with that. And all those topics which we are discussing, only that you need to learn. And for some other purpose, for some competitive exam or entrance exam, if you need, it will be useful. That's why I did not delete the topics from the printed notes. So you can mark or just in the text, in the printed notes itself, I had asked you to take a printout and file it. That will be easy to learn. Otherwise, to see all these from the mobile, it will be so tiring for your eyes. So please do take a printout and file it. There you can mark the deleted topics. Okay. So who is going to summarize the sliding filament theory? Punya, just start. How the muscle contraction is taking place. So sliding filament theory explains the mechanism of muscle contraction and how does it start?
Ma'am, I was not there.
So what you're supposed to do, Punya, if you're not there? Like small children, like 6th standard, 5th standard, I can understand. But a child who is in 11th should not come up with that excuse. It is your duty to go through what has been covered. If doubts, you can ask. Sania had sent me a message as her connectivity was weak. So please don't repeat it. Vidur? Vidur, start.
Muscle
Was that your
contraction.
brother? Was that your brother?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Muscle contraction is initiated by a nerve signal sent by the central nervous system through motor neuron.
Okay. Naureen, continue.
A motor unit comprises of a motor neuron and a muscle fiber connected to it.
Okay. Next, Nandana.
Neuromuscular junction is a junction between the muscle fiber, the motor neuron, and the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber.
Motor neuron and the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber. Okay. Donna.
The
Next.
neural signal on reaching the neuromuscular junction, it releases a neurotransmitter and it generates action potential in the sarcolemma.
Very good. So that a neurotransmitter example, can you say, Donna? You're reading? Acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the name of the, is an example for a neurotransmitter. Now, action potential is generated. Hope Sania is listening. An action potential is generated in the sarcolemma. Then what will happen, Anna?
And causes the release of calcium ions into the sarcoplasm.
So in response to the action potential, calcium ions will be released into sarcoplasm. Now what happens, Steffi? What these calcium ions will do?
They will bind with troponin subunits.
And
the masking of active sites of myosin is removed.
On actin filaments will be removed. And then what happens, Gayatri?
Utilizing the energy from ATP, then the myosin head gets attached.
Myosin
head attached. It like binds itself with the exposed active sites.
Then
and forms a cross bridge.
Cross arm will be formed. Then Malavika?
Cross bridge formation pulls the attached actin filament towards the
1 minute. Gayatri, it is cross bridge formation.
Ma'am, I said cross bridge.
Okay. Malavika, continue.
It pulls the actin filament towards the center of the A band.
Okay, so this will, once the cross bridge is formed, the actin filament will be pulled towards the center of, where are you?
A
Malavika? A band. Then what happens, Michael, after that?
The Z line that's attached to the actins are pulled inwards, which makes the sarcomere contract.
What is sarcomere? What do you mean by sarcomere? Huh? You said the sarcomere will shorten, but what is sarcomere? Sania, tell me what is sarcomere? This we had learned before. Huh? Who can say what is sarcomere? Nevin, what is sarcomere?
It contains filaments, actin and myosin.
No. Why the video is off? Rijas?
Yes, ma'am.
Why the video is off? First you tell me that. Rijas, I'm waiting. Now tell the answer. What is sarcomere?
It is the distance between the two Z lines.
Z lines, and you can even call it as the functional unit of muscle contraction. Sarcomere shortens, and now what happens, Evelyn?
Myosin will be releasing ADP and 1-phosphate.
Inorganic phosphate. Okay. Then Anthony.
NUATP binds and the cross bridge is broken.
Now without looking anywhere you say. You were reading.
NUATP binds and as cross bridge is broken.
Cross bridge is?
Broken.
Is broken. Then what happens, Meenakshi?
This process continues.
Until
the calcium ions reaches
till the calcium ions are pumped back to sarcoplasmic cistern. Okay, and this process gets repeated. Sania, where is she?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you understood now?
Yes, ma'am.
Any part which is not clear? It's clear now. Okay. So with that, we have completed locomotion and movement, and we are going to start with a new chapter, and it's not in order. I thought the last chapter I'll take first because it is simple. After that, we will learn 2 more chapters are there. Apart from the chapter which I'm dealing, we have neural control and coordination and excretory products and their elimination. So before that, we'll be learning about chemical control and coordination. So our topic for today is chemical control and coordination. And how is chemical control brought about? How chemical control, there is neural control and chemical control. In 10th standard, you have learned about it. How chemical control is brought about in your body. What do you mean by chemical control? Yes, Nevin. Why don't you unmute and say? Unmute and tell me the answer. Correct only what you said. Hormones. So it is brought about by chemical control is brought about by hormones. What are hormones, Anna? What do you mean by hormones? Where is it produced?
No, I don't know.
You don't know where are the hormones produced? Huh? Tell me, you have to tell which glands are producing it.
Many, there are different glands.
Then tell me one gland.
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, that is the name of the hormone. Adrenal gland. No other endocrine gland, you know? And I told you the answer. These are produced by endocrine glands. We have exocrine and endocrine glands. Who can tell me the difference between we already discussed, I think, in one of the chapter, exocrine and endocrine glands. What is the major difference? Vidar, give me the major difference between endocrine and exocrine.
Endocrine have ducts, through ducts.
Endocrine.
Exocrine.
Exocrine are exocrine glands are having ducts. Endocrine glands are ductless. Duct means some passage. So endocrine glands, they release their hormones or the secretions produced will be directly released into blood. Why? Because they don't have a duct to carry to the target organ. So endocrine glands are ductless glands. They will release these hormones directly into the blood, and blood will take it to the target organ. Whereas exocrine glands, they have ducts. One example I'll tell you. Pancreas. Pancreas, they have both exocrine and endocrine function. Pancreas produces the hormones. Which hormones are produced by pancreas? Anybody?
Insulin.
Insulin and one more. G, starting with G. Glucagon. Insulin and glucagon. These two are hormones, and these hormones will be directly released into the blood, and blood is taking it to the target organ. But at the same time, pancreas produce pancreatic juice. And this pancreatic juice will be carried to its to the target organ, to the destination. Actually, it will be poured into the duodenum, the beginning part of the small intestine, by a duct. You call it as pancreatic duct. So that means pancreas having both exocrine and endocrine function. So endocrine glands are ductless. They do not have any ducts to take their secretions to the target organs. Instead, these will be directly released into the blood, and blood will take it to the destination. And hormones, we say that these are chemical messengers. Hormones are chemical messengers. So let us learn about the different endocrine glands scattered throughout our body, and the hormones produced, and the functions of each of these hormones you will be learning. Chemical control and coordination. Chapter 22, the last chapter. Last chapter means in your textbook, this is the last chapter, chemical control and coordination. Endocrine system carries out chemical control. The chemical control and coordination is brought about by the endocrine system. Endocrine system consists of endocrine glands and the hormones secreted by them. So if you compare vertebrates and invertebrates, in invertebrates, the hormones, they have very simple endocrine systems. In invertebrates, simple endocrine systems are found, and very few hormones are produced by them. Whereas in vertebrates, they have a well-developed endocrine system and several hormones, each with a specific function, are produced. The endocrine system includes endocrine glands and their secretions or hormones. And hormones are non-nutrient chemicals. They act as intercellular. Intercellular means in between the cells, messengers, and they are produced in trace amounts. Hormones are produced in very less amount, trace amount, that is more than enough to carry out their functions. So hormones are chemical messengers, or you can say that these are non-nutrient chemical. They do not contain any nutrients. They are non-nutrient chemicals which act as intercellular messengers. So they act as messengers in between the cells and are produced in very minute amounts. Once again, the endocrine system brings about chemical control and coordination, and it consists of the different endocrine glands scattered across your body and the secretions produced by them, which are known as hormones. Hormones are non-nutrient chemicals, and these act as intercellular messengers, and they will be produced in very trace amounts by the endocrine glands. So here you can see the position of some of the endocrine glands: hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, pancreas, adrenal, ovary, testes. So about each of these endocrine gland you will be learning in detail. So let's begin with the first endocrine gland. And one more thing, apart from these different endocrine glands, just now I listed few names: pituitary, pineal, thyroid, adrenal, pancreas, parathyroid, thymus, gonads, then ovaries. Apart from that, there are certain other organs in your body. They also has the capacity to produce hormones. So apart from the different endocrine glands listed now, some other organs also can produce hormones. They include liver, kidney, heart, gastrointestinal tract. You'll be learning all that in detail. Once again, apart from the different endocrine glands, some other organs like liver, heart, kidney, gastrointestinal tract, etc. can produce hormones. Now let's begin with the first endocrine gland, hypothalamus. Hope you have heard about hypothalamus in class 10. Hypothalamus is a basal part of diencephalon. It's a basal part of diencephalon. Just a minute. It is found on the basal part of diencephalon. Diencephalon is a division of, it's a division of forebrain. You know that brain can be broadly categorized into forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. And diencephalon is a part of the forebrain. It consists of thalamus, hypothalamus, then epithalamus, subthalamus, etc. You don't have to learn all those. You just need to know that hypothalamus is present at the basal region or the basal part of diencephalon. And an extra information is that diencephalon is a part of your forebrain. It consists of thalamus, hypothalamus, subthalamus, and epithalamus. So that you need not learn, but the position of hypothalamus you should know. And it contains neurosecretory cells. So these are, these consist of neurosecretory cells, and you even call it as nuclei. The group of neurosecretory cells, you call them as nuclei. They secrete different types of hormones. Neurosecretory cells present in the hypothalamus, you call them as nuclei. They secrete different types of hormones like releasing hormones, inhibiting hormones, apart from that oxytocin and vasopressin. So these are the different hormones produced by hypothalamus. So once again, hypothalamus is the first endocrine gland that we discussed just now, and it is present at the basal part of diencephalon. And hypothalamus consists of several neurosecretory cells, and you call it as nuclei. And neurosecretory cells are those cells which carry out neurosecretion. Neurosecretion means storage, synthesis, and release of hormones from neurons. So these are neurons which produce hormones. So specialized nerve cells are there in hypothalamus, which will release different types of hormones, releasing, inhibiting hormones, and then oxytocin and vasopressin. Starting with the first one, releasing hormones. So as the name suggests, they will stimulate the secretion of pituitary hormones. So they will stimulate the pituitary gland to produce the different pituitary hormones. One such example is gonadotropin releasing hormone. Example for a releasing hormone is gonadotropin releasing hormone, and its function is to stimulate the release of gonadotropins from pituitary. Once again, hypothalamus has got several neurosecretory cells, and they produce different types of hormones like releasing hormones, then oxytocin, vasopressin, inhibiting hormones, etc. We started with the first one, releasing hormones. These hormones will stimulate the pituitary and make them release hormones. So you call it as releasing hormones. They will stimulate the secretion of pituitary hormones. They'll be stimulating the pituitary gland and make them release their respective hormones. One such example is gonadotropin releasing hormone. It's abbreviated as GnRH, and they will stimulate the pituitary gland to produce the hormone known as gonadotropin. And inhibiting hormones. Inhibiting hormones, as the name suggests, they will inhibit, prevent the secretion of pituitary hormones. Releasing hormone will stimulate the secretion of pituitary hormones, whereas inhibiting hormones will inhibit the release. Easy to remember. Example, somatostatin, that is an example for an inhibiting hormone. It will inhibit or prevent the release of growth hormone. Hope you are remembering growth hormone. You had learned, I think, in class 10. Growth hormone is necessary for the proper growth of bones, and that is responsible for increasing in the height of human beings. And if it is excess, the person will become giants, and if it is produced in very less amount, it will result in dwarfism. The person will become dwarf. And if it is secreted in excess amount, the person will become giants, and you call the situation as gigantism. Once again, hypothalamus produces releasing hormones, inhibiting hormones, then oxytocin and vasopressin. Releasing hormone, as the name suggests, they will stimulate the pituitary gland to release hormones, whereas inhibiting hormone will prevent the release of hormones from pituitary gland. One example for the first one, that is releasing hormone, is gonadotropin releasing hormone. They'll promote the release of gonadotropins from pituitary, and somatostatin will prevent, it's a inhibiting hormone, it will prevent the release of growth hormone from pituitary. If it is released in less amounts, it can result to a situation known as dwarfism. The person will be short statured. Then the next one, oxytocin and vasopressin. These two are transported axonally via axon. They'll be transported and they are stored in pituitary. The functions of these different hormones you'll be learning. Oxytocin and vasopressin play a very important role in human body, and these two hormones can be transported axonally and they get stored in the pituitary gland. So the neurosecretory cells will release it and they get stored in the pituitary gland. Yes.
What is the meaning of axonally?
Axon, neurons axon, dendrite axon. So neurosecretory cells are producing it. Nerve cells, specialized nerve cells are producing it. Then via axon they get transported and reaching the pituitary it gets stored over there. Axonally, via axon, through the nerve itself, nerve cell itself, it gets transported. Okay, Steffi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, second one is about.
Thanks for the previous slide.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. The last line, no confusion, no? Oxytocin and vasopressin. So they will be transported or they'll be reaching the pituitary gland through the axon. Okay, and from the nerve endings, it will be released. So they'll be transported along the axon, and once they reach the nerve endings, it will be released from there. Is it clear? And these two plays a very important role in regulating the functions of anterior pituitary gland. That when you learn about pituitary gland, we'll discuss about its categorization. Pituitary gland. It's the smallest endocrine gland. Out of all the endocrine glands, it is the smallest one. And the pituitary gland is located in a specialized bony cavity. And you call this bony cavity as sella turcica. So what is sella turcica? It's a bony cavity which encloses the pituitary gland. So pituitary gland is the smallest gland and it is enclosed in a bony cavity. It is protected with the help of a cavity made of bones and you call it as sella turcica. And sella, it is attached to the hypothalamus. The pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus by means of a stalk. It has got two parts. Anterior pituitary, you call it as adenohypophysis, and neurohypophysis, which is known as posterior pituitary. So after completing the first endocrine gland, hypothalamus, we started discussing about the second one, pituitary gland. What are the specialities we discussed? It's the smallest endocrine gland and it is located inside sella turcica, which is a bony cavity to provide protection. And pituitary is attached to hypothalamus by means of a stalk. There are some connections. You know that the hormones released in the hypothalamus is regulating the function of the pituitary gland. So whether it is releasing hormone or inhibiting hormone, everything is influencing the pituitary hormone. The release or inhibition of hormone secretion from pituitary is controlled by the hormones released from hypothalamus, and these two are connected with the help of a short stalk. And there are two parts. Pituitary gland can be categorized into, divided into two parts, anterior and posterior. Anterior, you call it as adenohypophysis. Remember the letter A and A. Anterior pituitary, adenohypophysis, and posterior pituitary, you call it as neurohypophysis. We'll start with the first one, adenohypophysis or anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is having two parts. Pituitary as such, two parts are there, adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis is further subdivided into two parts, pars distalis Let me take the pen. Pars distalis and pars intermedia. Just a minute, children. So there are two major parts, pars distalis and pars intermedia. Once again, pituitary gland is broadly divided into adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis is further subdivided into two portions, pars distalis and pars intermedia. So these two are coming under adenohypophysis. And the second part is pars distalis. See, pituitary gland, I told there are two parts. Broadly, pituitary gland is divided into anterior pituitary gland and posterior pituitary gland. And it is either known as anterior and posterior, or we even call it as adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis consists of two parts, pars distalis and pars intermedia. And even though we call it as, in general, adenohypophysis is known as anterior pituitary, to be specific, the pars distalis is known as the anterior pituitary. So when you say adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis, adenohypophysis is considered as the anterior pituitary. To be specific, it is the pars distalis portion of adenohypophysis that we call as anterior pituitary. And it produces hormones. The following hormones are produced by pars distalis or anterior pituitary. The first one is growth hormone, somatotropin. The other name for growth hormone is somatotropin. Then the second one, prolactin. Every hormone is abbreviated. Growth hormone is abbreviated as GH, prolactin PRL, thyroid stimulating hormone STSH, then adenocorticotrophic hormone or ACTH, then luteinizing hormone LH. Next one, see all the six we mentioned. Okay, once again, growth hormone, prolactin, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, luteinizing hormone, and the last one, follicle stimulating hormone. So you need to know the names of all these hormones as well as its abbreviated form. Once again, pituitary gland consists of adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis, and adenohypophysis consists of two parts, pars distalis and pars intermedia, and pars distalis produces different hormones like somatotropin or growth hormone, prolactin, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, etc. So we are going to learn in detail about the hormones which are released from pars distalis. Already we listed out 6 hormones. So one by one we will see the different hormones in detail. Somatotropin or growth hormone, it's essential for the proper growth of our body. Over secretion, already I told you, if it is secreted in excess amount, it will cause gigantism, abnormal growth. You can see a giant as well as a dwarf over here. And the first figure, you can see a very tall person. So it is because of the excess secretion of growth hormone. And hyposecretion, a low secretion or less secretion, causes dwarfism. And excess secretion of growth hormone in adults. So already I told you that excess will cause gigantism and less amount will cause dwarfism. And excess secretion of growth hormone in adults, they can cause a situation known as acromegaly, and this takes place, or this growth hormone production, when it is taking place in the middle age, not from the early stage. If it is taking place from the early stage, the person will become a giant. But towards the middle ages, if this hormone is released in our body in excess, it can result in a situation known as acromegaly, and this will bring about disfiguration of your face. As you can see in the picture, the facial bones and all the structure as such, it becomes different. So disfiguration takes place, and it can lead to serious complication and can lead to premature death. It might result in the death of the person in complicated cases. The disease is hard to diagnose in the early stages, and in the beginning it may not, or people may not notice it. But gradually, maybe when the situation gets worse only, people will diagnose, or doctors will diagnose, or they will approach a doctor and they'll diagnose. By the time it can be too late. So once again, we discussed about the first hormone, which is released from pars distalis. Pars distalis is a part of anterior pituitary gland, or even we call it as anterior pituitary gland. It's a part of adenohypophysis, and somatotropin or growth hormone brings about body growth. Excess amount can cause gigantism, less secretion, dwarfism. And if this hormone is secreted in excess amount in the middle ages, it can result in a situation known as acromegaly, and this will bring about disfiguration of the face, and serious complications can arise, and it can even result in the death of the person, a premature, like before getting old or before becoming old, or premature death can happen. And this situation is diagnosed very late, because it's very difficult to identify, and usually it will be diagnosed very late, and then it can be too late. It can lead to some complications if not diagnosed at the right time. Okay, any doubt? So next period I'll have a quick recap of what we covered just now. Okay, I'm winding up the session. Next period, just read the topics which we covered and join. Thank you, children.